What's up, everybody? Brothers, sisters, psychonauts, and seekers of truth. It is Ananka, and welcome to my bazaar. Today, I have a mescaline slash methamphetamine slash heroin slash cannabis trip report for you. The title of this trip report is The River and the Mountains, and was submitted to Heroin in 2001 by the user Peter. With all that being said, let our story begin. To me, the synergy between drugs is a very interesting aspect of drug usage. It can add the extra elements of profundity, intensity, and plain simple fun one individual can obtain by using drugs which mutually potentiate one another. I, as a simple 19-year-old, post-pubescent, overthinking psychonaut, had planned one thing: the use of psychedelics, namely mescaline in its pure and extremely illegal form, as a sulfate salt. Just as my friend, we'll call him T, were about to dose, I received a telephone call from a supplier, offering what sounded and did turn out to be stolen hospital supplies, these namely being a vial of diacetyl morphine, or heroin, and a bottle of methamphetamine tablets. At an irresistible price from such a nice guy, I could hardly refuse. I won't go into details of getting said chemicals, so I'll continue with my initial dosing. Here's how it went. At T+0, T and I took 2 smallish bumps of crushed methamphetamine tablets each, with our hopes being not only to have the energy to last the whole damned experience, but also to make use of the meth's sympathomimetic features. The lay term meaning it opens up your windpipe wider and allows you to take in more smoke. Very useful. As usual, the meth took about a minute to kick in, and we found ourselves jabbering nonsensically for 20 minutes, before remembering about the mescaline. Oh my. 25 minutes in, with said mescaline sulfate dissolved in grapefruit juice, down the hatch the foul-tasting shit went. Slowly, though, over about 15 to 20 minutes. Immediately followed by compulsive cleaning of teeth and repeated garglings of large amounts of Listerine until demonic mescaline foul taste of death disappears. 1 hour in. Neither T nor I had experienced mescaline before. We had planned to go out once the mescaline kicked in, but decided to wait a while for our mistreated stomachs to settle and the crystal to wear off. Then a brilliant idea occurred, probably the most sane all day. T suggested we use a little of this powerful skunk to reduce nausea, as we'd never tried it before, and it never seemed to reduce said sickness anyway. By this time, I was too far gone to say, okay, a little, but I did persuade T to wait a while, just for the mescaline to work. 2 hours in. Oh my. Mescaline is more powerful than I thought. A brilliant new cornucopia of meandering, colorful images welcome my vision with closed eyes. Feels like I'm going to float away. Through open eyes, the hilarity of faces on T and the television can only be described with a likeness to British TV's spitting image. Life is caressing the shadows and working its way into the light, bumping into each other and dancing to the music, which at the time, if memory serves me correctly, was Whiskey in the Morning by Buckcherry. A fantastic song, with the little stoned tadpoles and froglets gently pleasuring themselves through the flowing light and color patterns. My body was quite literally restless, hyper and deliciously lethargic simultaneously. The myriad of colors was softening, and the body feeling was getting more intense. Very pleasurable. The sight of T packing a bong reminds me of a spider monkey using some kind of metallic potato to masturbate frantically. Laughter maketh mescaline indeed more intoxicating. I want to writhe with pleasure, but the temptation at that moment to masturbate myself were too strong, and T wouldn't like it. 5 hours in. Well. Crystal is a brilliant dilator of those muscles behind the ribs. I've just come out of what was another dimension. A beautiful place of solitude, of learning, creativity, and boundless frolicking round the river and the mountains. What I'd done was pack a huge bowl of what was the most powerful cannabis I had ever smoked. I had felt that my breathing was stable now, not so erratic, and my heart was pounding at what seemed like a nice stable 80. So I slowly took in a massive bowl of skunk, which felt blindingly intense as soon as I took the hit, and remained held in my lungs for 30 seconds. As soon as I let the smoke out, it filled the room. T just sat there and said, "Oh, that's some one-hit shit, right, buddy?" My spluttering response apparently was, "Holy shit," before flopping back onto the floor from my seated position, with the blood pump now at what felt like 2,000 beating in my mouth. Visuals took over and I decided to go with the flow. I drifted into the land of the river and the mountains. I asked the question, why a river and mountains? I realized the answer was plain and simple. They represent one's path and choices in the infinite energy which is still beyond scientific comprehension, called life. One must take the path using the right map and guidance. People who dash up the mountains and let their egos and pride take over will fall back to the bottom and have to start again. Once at the top of the mountain, it's just as tempting to jump into the river and do all you can. But this would be overwhelming, and the diver would find themselves being rushed far too quickly toward the end of the river, and thus the end of life. One must therefore descend the mountain carefully, looking for the source of the river, following the right tributaries until your abilities have developed enough for you to swim steadily and handle any undertow obstacles in the right way. Either side of the river are beautiful forests, alive with the sound of giggling pink cherubs and pleasure fairies. These are merely distractions and false pleasures, and although they are nice for a while, they'll stop your journey down the river. After awaking from this amazingly conceptual imagery, 2 hours later, I proceeded to wake T, who was in the same position as me across the room, also on the floor. He grunted and stirred and sat up. I explained my concept to him, and he told me of his closed-eye imagery, of the astral bodies of Ra and Gilgamesh engaging in a duel of smite, swords drawn and eyes glowing. Fascinating. He wasn't quite as off of his face as I, but even I could tell he was a million miles away. 7 hours in. Well, the mescaline's all but left to twinkle now. The effects have mostly disappeared. A little more crystal has allowed another hour of whimsical babbling, atrocious jokes, and pot-headed witty banter in the style of Nietzsche meets Shakespeare, and our brilliant idea of making Thus Spake Zarathustra into a comedy series set in space, along the lines of the brilliant 5-part trilogy of Doug Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide. However, now the meth is getting tired and paranoid. Exit state and reboot universe with the aid of some nice pure diamorphine. 20 milligrams were in the ampule, and we had a third of this each. Seeing as I paid for the skag, I get the last of it, as and when I desire, of course. T kept the meth, because I find compulsion sometimes kicking in with meth, leaving canker sores and 2-day anorexia in my already skinny body. I would like to stress that I always use clean equipment, sterilized, when injecting into a vein especially. Avoid even the tiniest air bubble in the syringe, and use pure injecting medium such as ascorbic acid when shooting. Anyways, I prepared the H, and T shot first, as I had to reiterate him on safe shooting. Once said task was complete, I stared into this gray syringe for 5 minutes, then approached my bed, taking the tourniquet from T on the way. Seeing him staring glassy-eyed at the ceiling made me want to do the same, so without further ado, I jabbed my forearm and joined him in the land of Nod. 13 hours and 30 minutes in, after being on the Nod for what must have been 6 hours, I got up and felt the bile rising in my throat. Proceeded to rush to the nice, friendly water closet for some therapeutic regurgitation. I also got some ciggies from my kitchen and gave one to T, who welcomed it, as he was still very much semi-synthetic peace and solitude. I indeed felt tranquil as well, and when T woke up, we shared a celebratory bowl of our beloved skunk, along with sharing the remaining heroin. What an exhausting day. Time for sleep. 22 hours in, I awoke to the sound of T vomiting into the toilet. Thank Christ he didn't decorate the place again, as he did during his alcohol incident last summer. After barging past T to vomit in the sink, and clutching my head reeling from the most agonizing motherfucking hangover imaginable to humanity, my girlfriend rang. I sobered up and vowed to view drug combinations with more care from then on. Peace to you all. All right, everybody. That is the end of our story. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Share with us any experiences you've had with a psychedelic and opioid combination. Check out the other playlists and videos on my channel, and I will see you in the next one, fam. Deuces.